All right, so good evening again, everyone, and welcome to our case study simulation class for May 2026 ICAN diet. Um, this is a class that we hold with the intention to ensure our students feel very comfortable going for ICAN case study exam. And the plan we shared on the group, which we are starting right now, is that we are starting with full case study simulation class on Friday, 15th of May, 2026, 8 p.m., which is this class we are starting right now, 3 hours. And I'm reiterating this so that everybody is aware and you don't miss these activities. The next one is that immediately after this class, you've got an assignment to write. Hmm? Even though I've prepared a lot of things for you, like a lot of things, but I don't take anything as a substitute to the fact that you need to write your own report, which is a form of an assignment and a form of mock exam for you. So it is very important that you participate in the report writing. Of course, most of the information you need is already available. It's just that there is the preparation part that has to do with you picking up your pen and putting those information together ahead of the exam by yourself. It helps you to gauge your time management. It helps you to put yourself together basically. So don't take anything for granted. And that will be happening tomorrow. Immediately we are done with this simulation through tomorrow, and then it closes. The deadline is 11 p.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow is 16th, yes. And that's it for case study. You are done. And this is something we've communicated before now, and we told you to prepare ahead for it. And then just because we don't want to wait till you write exam, is that we have also mapped out 1 hour on Sunday by 8 p.m. around this time. We'll just have a 1 hour chat. You would have been reading other courses. Once you are done with case study according to this plan, drop it and go to your other courses if you are writing many courses. If you are writing only case study, I mean, congratulations, because you have enough time to ensure you deal with case study and score minimum of 80%. Um, so that 1 hour is just to have a brief discussion of what we have been looking at and what your report looks like. And then we won't do anything. You focus on your other exam until you are done with other papers on Tuesday, Wednesday night. And then we come on 9 p.m. on Wednesday night to finalize our preparation, 2 hours, 2 hour session in the night from 9 to 11, and then just to discuss our final approach, strategy, and how we want to go and kill the exam. And then you can sleep. Like at that moment, once you are done with that class, just spend another 30 minutes, positioning yourself and go and sleep. The purpose of that sleeping is to have enough energy and so that your hand as well will be strong. So that next morning your hand is not shaking. You go and sleep and then wake up in the morning, go for the exam, and just go and dish out everything that we have here. And on this note, my next point in this simulation class is that this is also the time that so many things will be flying around. Oh, if you tell me you haven't seen anything, it's probably a lie. You must have been seeing so many things flying around. And it's very normal, including what we are doing as well, right? So many people will get to, just like people will also listen to other lecturers, other tuition houses, but the part of it which I'm calling your attention to is the fact that you see things like the unseen, the preseen, the unseen, and solution. And then some will go as far as telling you these are the numbers. These are the numbers. Oh, this number, this is it. This is the number that we invest. This is the MPV, or this one. This is the actual MPV, and that one. When you see things like that, I always tell my own student to be careful, because those things will frame your mind. Those things will do what? Will frame your mind. Those things will frame your mind. And when you get inside the exam hall and you find something different from all those things that you have structured your mind to follow, then you will either not be able to recover from the fact that you got something different in exam, or you will spend so much time trying to recover from it. And before you recover, it might either be too late, or it affects your mark really, such that maybe you are still able to pass, but maybe marginal pass. And we have seen this happen time without number. So the first thing I want to beg of you in this class is to have an open mind. You are my students as far as case study is concerned. And trust me, if there is one thing that I wish, we have 67 people on this call, although our students is way, way more than this. Just that a lot of people prefer to use the videos. I'm talking about people that enrolled for case study now, way over 100, right? Um, Probably close to 200, right? And the fact, like I said, some people prefer to use the videos, and I will be happy if all the students passes case study, and on that ground that we have a common goal, because for you want to be happy to pass. For us as a center as well, we want our pass rate to be speaking volume. And even me as a tutor, I want to be, I want people to keep talking about it, that, oh, go to that center, their SFM lecturer, their case study lecturer, I want that as well as a tutor. So you can see that we are on the same page. There is no disconnection. So when I say this, I have seen, see, it causes trouble when you frame your mind with the so-called preseen, unseen, and solution. Some people will literally prepare and even cram numbers. The only number you should cram, as far as these reports we want to look at in this class is concerned, is the fact that part of this report, they have also given you some few numbers. They have also given you some few words, numbers. We are going to do some things that will have to do with those numbers. And of course, this number will not disappear inside the actual exam. They will still be there. But we will, of course, make provision for the fact that they might add some things. They can choose to add 2024. They can choose to add anything to it just to have a more balanced year and then do a robust analysis. We have open mind towards those things. And we are going to have a very long discussion towards your readiness for this exam. And the goal is you want to pass. And to achieve that goal, please and please have an open mind. And that's what I have to say before we start this class. Okay, so are we set? Any question before we start? Any question, any expectation, anything at all, any comment?
Sorry, good evening, Simon.
Yeah, good
Is
evening.
my audible?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
So, in your assessment of the Preseen, what do you think? Um, should we be worried? Should it be how do I put it? But I believe you understand what I'm trying to say. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. Um, for case study, since we started having Preseen, I can tell you we have never had a diet where we are not on track with simulation as a center. So our students, I can tell you this, who follow our simulation class, they are always in the safe zone when it comes to ICAN case study exam, right? However, because you cannot win 100% of the students to actually follow and stay in that safe zone, whether you like it or not everybody will listen, right? Of course, some will then be impacted by, you know, whatever is flying around and other information, sometimes even too much information, right? Because trust me, after your exam, some of you come to my DM, we chat, you give me feedback as to how the exam, went and all. So I am speaking on this from experience. So you as a student, we want to achieve this together. Trust me, if you have an open mind, there is nothing to worry about. And we've never had anything to worry about. Do you know why? You're going to read some of the things together because we'll actually spend about 20 minutes reading this case study again. Do you know why we need to read it? I have read it. I know you have read it as well, but we'll read it again. Do you know why? We can never read it enough. we can, so even after tonight, I will still tell you tomorrow before you write it, read it maybe 2 times if you have the time. Anytime you have free time, go and read it again. And the reason we are doing that is that you've got a 16-page Preseen. In the unseen, they will add more pages. And then in the exam, if you have not read it enough so that you don't have to reread the Preseen, then you will spend significant time rereading the Preseen in the exam, which will be costing you your time. So we cannot read this case study Preseen enough. We need to continue to read it and familiarize ourselves with it so much that, if possible, you can quote what is in a seventh line, page 7. Let's go to page 7. So such you need to read it. I'm just joking, exaggeration now. Such that this page 7, where is page 7? You already know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just guessing. You can already tell that page 7, seventh line. I have income from product making. You need to have read it to that extent. I'm just joking. Please don't start cramming what is in which line. But I'm just trying to justify why we need to even spend some time to go through this case again, because it's part of the preparation for this exam, the way you have been preparing for those other courses. Yeah. And back to you, just to land on your point, the moment we're on the same page and you understand our objective, and the fact that the purpose of releasing case study Preseen is to familiarize yourself with the case and familiarize yourself with the industry, and use that to simulate possible things that ICAN can examine so that you can prepare ahead for them. And then once you get inside the exam, you see what you are expected to do, you can then exploit it. Now, with the fact that the way ICAN case study is always like an open exam. I always mention that it is the only exam that looks like an open exam. When I say an open exam, an exam that they are saying, Kazim or Sarah, come into this exam hall, come and show your power. Come and show what you've got. Come and show that you can write a report. So it's not like SFM where you must calculate, you must give you 10%. If you are not getting 10%, you are wrong. Or like SBR that you must do it and it must balance. And if it doesn't balance, it's not like that. It's an open exam where you are just coming to show your report writing and analytical skill. So because of that, case study is actually not a course that people should be getting wrong if you prepare. And for the students that joined us from the beginning of the diet, this is why a very wrong approach also is to wait for Preseen. Some people, I'm not I'm not referring to you directly, for those of you that paid for only simulation and joined this class. But trust me, case study preparation for exam is not only about Preseen. A lot has gone. In fact, our students have written 2 reports before now. And those 2 reports, we had classes before those reports. And the intention is for people to actually know report writing. So, and by the time people write reports on this, you see some of the differences anyways. But you need to familiarize yourself with report writing. If you are someone who is not familiar with that, go and listen to all the videos we had earlier. It's not too late to do that right now. If you are writing case study, to listen to maybe the first 2 videos are at least very important before the simulation. And all of those things put together should not make anybody to worry. So we are very good, and we are going to do a very good simulation, and you should actually know what to expect. And if I can't deviate from those things, you know that you've prepared your mind towards all possibilities and you're good. I think that's the best way to answer that question. There is nothing to worry about. Trust me. By the end of this class, you will see that there is nothing to worry about. There is nothing. You have absolute comfort. And then, yeah. Sarah, quick one before we go ahead. You have
Okay.
comment.
Hi, Sarah. Good evening. So
Your
I was Going through the Preseen, and under the key responsibilities, they said something about strategic tax planning, and I am not taking advanced tax in this diet, so I don't know anything about tax, and I was a bit worried. I don't know how that's going to play into the requirements and everything.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal. How many courses are you writing again? I can't remember.
23 SFM, SBR, and case study.
Yeah, so the highest you can do if you are afraid that they mention, we are going to simulate anyways, and those are some of the things that we will deliberately portray and hit very well. But trust me, the highest anyone should do is because they mentioned this. If I'm a bit worried, let me go and quickly revise tax planning and incentives, which is a chapter in advanced taxation. But you don't even need that. We'll capture it in our comment. And yeah, really. Okay. So does that help?
Yeah,
There's
sure.
nothing to worry about. That's still what I'm saying. Okay, so let's go, guys. And I will need active you guys to be active. So we are doing this together, and this is your class. And this is not the regular class. This is not past question. This is your exam question. Do we agree? Are we on the same page?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the way you should be looking at the screen is like this. Like be looking anything we are reading, be following. That's because it's your exam. This is your exam question, not past question. Next diet, this your question will become past question. So this is your question. So don't take it lightly, please. Okay, so this is your regular instruction. We are not going to spend time reading this page. The only part I want to show you in this page, of course, read it yourself. It has to do with the fact that you must not bring this to the examination hall. The purpose of this is for you to analyze and carry out research to understand the industry and and all of that, and then they mention some few things and all. And then at the end of the day, they said to you, this is the part that becomes extremely important now, which I need somebody to read. And then we'll just use it to reiterate some points, and then we carry on. Somebody, assessment of the case study, quickly.
Okay, let me read.
Yeah.
Assessment of the case study. Okay. The marks in the case study examination are awarded for professional skills and are approximately allocated as follows. Number one, assimilating and using information, 20%. Structuring problems and solutions, 20%. Applying judgment, 20%. Drawing conclusions and making recommendations, 20%. Demonstrating integrative and multidisciplinary skills, 10%. Presenting appropriate appendices, 10%.
Okay. And then, yes, let me read this part and just comment on it where they said, of the total
Okay.
marks available, 20% will be assigned to executive summary, and approximately 10% to be assigned to your proper consideration of ethical issues within the requirement. And okay, just before I move on, you won't do this exam without writing executive summary. You don't want to do that. Are we all on the same page? Because it is so significant that missing it out can cost you this exam. Hmm. So that's the most important thing to take away here. And of course, the other point is that ethical requirement is always embedded and you should pay attention to it. And we've even got a question that there are so many ethical issues. So ethical consideration is very big in this particular diet. Okay. And they've given you a pointer here to say these are things you should watch out for: lack of professional independence or objectivity, conflict of interest among stakeholders, doubtful accounting or creative accounting practices, unethical business or commercial practices, inappropriate pressure to achieve results. And all of these needs to be watched out for. They mentioned few other points which you can chill, but the most important thing we want to look at next is your role, your JD, your role in this exam. Because I always tell students that that's the most important thing for you So you've got list of exhibits which we want to go through, just 5 exhibits, and we want to walk through it before we start the simulation proper. So the most important one is your role. And I need somebody to read that and read it, slowly, your role. About you now,
Okay.
from about you.
Okay. I think I'll read. All right. About you, Tokumbo Adiolu, and your employer, Gaba.
The problem started with the fact that they are incurring higher direct costs compared to even the income they are earning. And obviously, this has resulted in accumulating huge retained loss over the years. And that's the summary of the position of this company. And thank you thank you to everyone that have read and that also listened. Think about the time it took us to read this question. It's already looking significant enough. And you wonder if this is something you want to read again in the exam. On that note, how many more time are you budgeting to read this case before the exam? Somebody answer me. How many more time do you want to read it before the exam? Because just because you cannot afford to read this Preseen again in the exam.
I don't know,
Sarah,
like
how many more times?
Like 3 times.
Like 3 times.
10
3 times.
times.
10 times. Okay. Maybe not bad for someone who is writing case study only. But 10 times. If you're writing 3, like you're writing 3. For others writing 4, 5, 10 times might be too much. You get my point? But for someone who is writing only case study, trust me, 10 times is not too much. Read it, keep reading it, ensure you familiarize yourself with this case so that when you get inside the exam, you don't read it again. It's long. See, even for those that read, reading only one exhibit, you forgot you've forgotten everything we've been reading. It is what it is. And very interesting case. I think the analysis will start officially now. And we have read it, we are familiar with what is in there, and we have emphasized on. So let me welcome you again to case study class. And let me say that because I think the number, maybe some people have slept because this is already past 9. And let me plead with you to ensure you stay on this call. Stay on this call. And let's be together till the end. Yeah. So because we'll have some important discussions that will help you with the report you'll be writing tomorrow. And one of the things we've talked about is to ensure you read this instruction so that you don't have to read it again. We have emphasized on the importance of this marking guide and how important executive summary is, and also the fact that ethical requirement is always embedded. These are key things to watch out for. And then we have also emphasized on the fact that you have a role, and this role is always very important for students to read it and understand their role. So this case study is starting with the fact that you work with Tokumbo Adeolu, and without wasting much time, it looks like you work as Tokumbo Adeolu, but you work for Gaba Chukwemeka Adelani and Co. And the company you are analyzing is Gadeso, what's the name again? That company. And at the end of the day, the first question we want to answer at this point is, are we analyzing internal or external reports?
external.
External.
External report. So
External
this should be very
report.
clear
External
for those
report.
of us that have been joining our case study lectures. But the reason it is external report is because you are Tokumbo Adeolu, who works for Gaba Chukwemeka Adelani and Co. And you are writing report for a client. The client is that cocoa processing company. So obviously you are writing an external report. It's just like when maybe one of the big four is providing an advisory services to their clients, say MTN or GT Bank, or that is an external report. Okay. And then it's always good to go through your responsibilities, because ICAN will always ask questions around your responsibility. And you see from this, and also from previous diet trend, that it's always in your role to analyze financial situation. So it's looking like something that is inevitable in this diet again. Financial analysis is very key. We have had separate class on financial analysis to ensure you are ready for this time. Okay. So the second thing is assessment of business proposals. And then it says you should be able to assess business proposals and consider strategic impact. And we have seen in this question that there are several strategic options, which we are going to be discussing in detail soon. So be ready to have something on this JD, really, on this particular JD. And then the next one says evaluation of forecast and assumption. You are required to evaluate and scrutinize assumptions upon which they are based, and to enable well-grounded judgment, draw a conclusion, and all of that. So this is also something we need to read the case and see which one might likely, push us to doing something around forecast, especially with the fact that this company, working capital wise, they are so terrible, in a very terrible situation. And then the other bit is strategic tax planning. This is also part of your JD, and it is very important to pay significant attention to this area, because we are also talking about an industry that has been neglected for years. And it is very likely that if you are going to get something right in this area, one of the areas you need to seek support is also in the tax side, right? Especially the fact that this is an industry that government might easily be willing to support. So it is very easy to have a designation of pioneer status and other tax incentives that can be explored. And, those are things that you need to, remind yourself of around tax. So if you're looking to push things to the next level, so tax should not be left behind as well. Okay, so you should not take that off completely. And of course, it requires that you are able to draft report writing. Very, very key. And that is the summary of your role. That is the summary of your role. And the next part we dealt with is the cocoa industry, the cocoa business in Nigeria. The background since 1960, how it was contributing so significantly to the economy, and how at some point we saw the decline, and then everything already declined before we started waking up again to see how did we get here from the 2000s, and till today we are still trying to figure things out. And so many things that we discussed, I'm just trying to bring us back to what we've been discussing, down to the fact that you've got the cocoa processing industry as well, which is a subsector within that industry, which is where this company we're about to analyze belong to, and how they have actually been, they were talking about the industry itself, the capacity, the concentration to the southwest region of the country, and how, there are struggles of the, industry in terms of equipment not already outdated, and so many things that we have read. I'm just trying to, give a quick summary of what we have picked. And, just so many things, to the fact that there is also a part here where they presented a SWOT analysis, but you need to follow and know that this SWOT analysis is a SWOT analysis on the industry, on the cocoa processing industry, not on the company we're analyzing. Take note of that, right? Identifying the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, right, for that industry. And then
Is it
somebody speaking. Okay, so maybe if you want to speak, you can actually use raise of hands, and then I can always call when I land. And then challenges facing the industry was properly highlighted here. You will see that there are so many big problems facing the industry, so many big problems, finance, so many big problems, right? And then we came down to the company. We read the company's information, how they started in 2014, how they were doing well, up until certain point, over the last 5 years, it's been a struggle. They have been accumulating losses, due to several factors. And some of the things we can see here is that this company obviously has a very weak board, and they have very weak internal control. Obviously, these are things that are supposed to be facilitated by the board, but we can see that the board, no independent person in the board from what we have gone through here, because those are the things you should be watching out for when you're reading, information about board of directors of a company. And at the end of the day, we see that this has escalated to a level where they have big problem. Look at it. They said two main challenges that they are currently facing. One, very big working capital issue. And then they went ahead to say they have delay payment to from customers. They have high interest rates, outdated plant, inefficient inventory management, poor financial planning. These are big problems that if you're having all of these problems at the same time, then how will you accumulate losses? And then we went further to say, there are consequences that have resulted from these issues. And then we've also gone ahead to see that the company is also facing international product rejection due to poor quality control, lack of certification, inadequate packaging, lack of research, and even the way the industry in Nigeria is perceived, right? This has led to international product rejection. So what do you want to export, right? And then went ahead to now say, oh, these are the strategic directions we are looking at as way forward. And this is a very strange bit that we are seeing for the first time in case study, where they actually gave so many options as way out. And we are seeing that one of it is financial restructuring and working capital management strategies. Another one is quality improvement and certification. Another one is backward integration, right? To start working with your suppliers and all, and then to strategic alliance with international partners and all of those. And then to the fifth one, risk and mitigation strategy to ensure your quality control procedures and internal processes are solid. And these are 5 way out. And the first thing that should come to mind really is that will it even be possible for ICAN to bring on scene outside these 5 requirements? Maybe very slim. It is just very likely that all the things you are going to see will then border around these 5 way forward. But let's still relax and take it gradually so that we don't quickly jump into conclusion, without proper analysis. Okay. So on that note, they now gave us numbers which I spoke on earlier, showing that the company has accumulated losses, and these losses are so big that if you're also looking at it, not just loss, they have operating loss as well. And as a matter of fact, they have gross loss as well across the 2 years. And they also mentioned it when we were analyzing that they have been experiencing this for the last 5 years. They have been accumulating losses experiencing big challenges since the last 5 years, right? And this is the first thing that should even come to mind, which you need to open your mind to in this exam, is that with this big problem in this industry, with the rejection from the international market, with the fact that even apart from the international market problem, the industry problem, the sub-industry or sub-sector problem, and even your own problem as a company that we have seen, why not just close this business? Trust me, as a student, I will open my mind. I will not close my mind completely from what if what we are going to face in this exam is liquidation. Look at the number. I'm just preparing you for the questions I'm going to be asking you now. And then my question to you will now be, from everything we've read, what can you say about this case study? What are the things, even from your own personal analysis, what are you going to be expecting? And I'm going to be allowing up to 5 people to speak, maybe for 2-3 minutes. up to 5 people to speak, and I can even try to document some of the things that you might be saying. And then I will pick it up from there. I've done some analysis before this class as well. I've done quite a number of analysis. I've also, put this case study on, I've also put it on, AI platform to see what what is able to see with this case as well, which I will also walk you through. And then also my final position with what, I am able to simulate, and then we can corroborate it with what you are seeing. And then at the end of the day, we'll come to a landing point. And that landing point is what you will now use or take away to now consolidate your report, your Preseen report together for our finalization. Okay, so Dubem's hand is raised. Maybe before you start by speaking, Dubem, other people, if you are interested in speaking on what we have analyzed so far, what you think, I can allow up to 5 people to speak, but I'll prefer you raise your hand and I can call one after the other. So Dubem, do you want to start?
Hi, Steven. Good evening.
Yeah. Evening.
All right. So mine, I just want to two things, right?
I think your distance from your device, and we can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, kind of better, but it looks like you're still a bit far away.
Give me a second. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, mine was just to confirm something, right? The NPT, is it cost tracker now? That stuff that you gave to us initially, where you see past questions and all that. In the case of when it comes to case study, right? There are various industries and what the examined areas of those industries are. So looking at this question, I mean, first off, I would think is agribusiness, and from that NPT cost tracker, we have for agribusiness, we're only going to look at for the examining areas, we have financial ratios, sustainability performance, and capital project appraisal. But looking at this from this Preseen, it's very, it's very convincing that we shouldn't follow what these agribusiness areas are, right? Because I'm seeing a lot of SWOTs, right? And from the little I know, I mean, I don't have the exact requirements, but I mean, I can get a lot of SWOT variables from this question. I can get a lot of pastel, and from that do a bit of analysis, business and environment and all that. So I just want to know what your thoughts are on that. Should we still go ahead with this cost chart, or just go ahead to do the SWOT analysis? Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. But just to clarify the purpose of this cost chart, this cost chart is actually to show you the industry that was examined in that particular diet and the area that was tested in that diet. For just like for SFM, if we go to each diet, we can say this topic was tested this diet. So that's exactly what this is serving to say. In November 2023, for example, we are saying the case study was based on agribusiness, and we are saying the requirement covers financial analysis, sustainability performance, and capital investment appraisal. See, the one you are testing this diet is still related to agribusiness. Some can classify it as agro processing, business, because at the end of the day, we don't want to also limit ourselves, because this is a case study where part of the strategic options, we have seen that they are currently into cocoa processing, but they are considering backward integration, and they are also considering forward, a form of forward integration, really. So on that note, we can just say agri slash agro processing, anywhere, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that we know the bigger picture of the sector. And in fact, maybe a better way is to narrow it down to a smaller picture It looks like a subsector, but it might give you a better picture. And the smaller picture is cocoa. So, and at the end of the day, these guys might find themselves in a position where they just want to do anything that is cocoa related, from growing cocoa products to what? To processing it to various products and to even exporting it to international market. So by the time you look at that, so the sector should not really be much of headache. And the most important driver should be the fact that we have also been given the strategic options, although we will not limit our mind to those that we have been given. Just like I've even asked you guys that with the way with everything we've read, should you not even tell these guys to just close the shop and go home? That was just a joke. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Do you still have any other thing to say, or we should start calling orders? I think I have 5 people's hand raised.
That's all for me from now for now.
Okay, great. And then I will speak on the other aspect, of course, the other aspect you mentioned in terms of the analysis tools and all. Okay, Joanne, do you want to go ahead with your comments?
Okay, yes, good evening. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, clearly.
Okay, so number one, I want to really say that I think when you mentioned the part of the business probably considering closing, I mean, I kind of agreed with you because number one, their figures are speaking a lot, and I feel like there's a really big operational efficiency issue with the company because starting from their cost of sales, the fact that their cost of sales is even exceeding their revenue year on year, it shows that maybe there's a big gap of operational efficiency. And I feel like probably what they will need would be to like get maybe someone in their management that has experience in this sector because I feel like there's nobody that has the experience in this sector, which may be a reason why this is happening, right? And I also feel like one of the way forward should be like maybe they should get government grants because if we ask them to get maybe debt or additional equity, looking at their retained earnings between 2022 and 2023, the figure reduced by 100%. Like so, if we say they should get debt, their finance cost is already high, which means that the liquidity will already, be diminished at the end of the day if we decide that they should get additional debt. So I feel like the best shot that they can get should be like they should be considering government grants so that in that way they are not incurring more finance costs. And using the government grants, maybe they should consider investing in their infrastructure, which in the question they mentioned that one of the reasons for their inability to meet market requirements is due to decapacitated or decapacitated um, assets. So I feel like they should invest in getting new technologies and refurbishing their assets such that they're able to meet requirements. And then also I think they should also invest just like the one of the way forward that was provided in the question said they should also invest in certificates because I feel like even if they're able to increase their production level, right? Even if they want to export, the foreign market already has a certain perspective, right? So if they're able to, improve quality control and get that certificate, it can improve the foreign investors' confidence, right, in the business. So I think that's what I want to say.
Okay, great. And I hope I did not. One thing, some things that I picked strongly is that you mentioned government support, especially with the fact that all these options that we are already looking at them exploring, with the finances that we're looking at, these guys might need support or just close shop and go home. And that's one thing I strongly picked. And then you mentioned that even if they want to remain in business and they want to start producing and all of that, the kind of publicity and name that the industry already holds, plus the company and everything, might not even give them market to sell the product in the international market, really. And getting certification. Where did I? International certification. I think I typed the now here. Okay, so yeah, I mean those 2 points are strongly picked, and thank you for that. Okay, so next hand is, I'm not sure the order, but let me just follow the order on my screen. Emmanuel.
All right. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So for me, in the area I'm looking at, for this company to survive, there should be a total overhauling of the management structure. Because looking at the financial statement, you see that cost of sales is quite higher than the revenue. I mean, what is the management doing about it? Such that your cost of sales is higher than your revenue for the 2 years, and the gap is so wide. So it seems something is wrong with the management structure. So if they are going to be in business at all, there should be a total overhauling of the management. Then looking at their total equity. If you look at the total equity, in fact, their revenue is gone completely. Because with this, what is remaining here, it means that there
Cannot
is
even buy
nothing.
a bottle of water.
There's nothing. In fact, the company is gone completely. So the only avenue, the only savior for them is to leverage on grants. So since we have read the industry and there is room for grants, the government is ready to support, and even international organizations are ready to support the industry. I think if they can leverage on that and get grants that will be fused into this business. If not, there is no option for them when it comes to borrowing, because they have already borrowed and their gearing is so high, their finance cost is so high, and cost of sales overwhelming. So there's nothing they can do. They should not even look in the side of borrowing. So they should, if they can leverage but before that is done, there should be a total overhauling of the structure, the management structure, so that going forward, this can be avoided. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think the next hand is Robert.
Okay. So is this something I noticed while I was reading what I read the Preseen? So like you said, there are like five possible options, for what the company can do. What I noticed was financial restructuring just seems quite unrealistic because seeing how the company is performing, like when you look at their ratios or look at their overall performance, with how bad their cost of sale is and bottom line, I don't think any creditor or lender will be willing to extend or even like let's say if they wanted to do some, let's say change the debt to equity. I don't think anybody will be interested in it because the main thing in financial restructuring is the creditors or lenders being interested in doing so or like seeing potential in the company to do so. And I don't think there's any potential here. So that's just
So
something
the
I
only person
noticed.
that can see potential, which supports what someone said earlier, is the government. Thank you for that. But just go ahead. I wanted to document that, but I will document it as re-emphasizing on this government support and also maybe saying restructuring, financial restructuring now. Pardon my spelling. Restructure when may not be what? feasible. Okay, just go ahead.
Oh no, that's it. That's what I just wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. So meaning if these guys are really looking for a way out, okay, it's better either you close or you go and beg the government to come and help you if the sector is important to the government. I mean, no idea is bad because like I've already told you guys from the beginning of this class, no matter any preseen, unseen, and solution that someone is selling to you, ICAN is ICAN, and you will know on Thursday. If you have written case study before, you can confirm what I'm saying. Or if especially for those that have written case study time without like severally, maybe 2 or 3 times, they know what I'm talking about. They know what I mean by several unseen and preseen and solution will be flying before the exam, but ICAN will come on the exam day and show you who they are. And those that will be able to survive it easily are those that had their mind open, like wide open, and then deal with it. Okay, thank you for that. The next hand I'm seeing here is Rosemary. Do you want to go ahead? Please, I don't want any new hand again. And let's now make it short and straight to the point, please, because I said 5 earlier, but I can see there are more hands. So let's limit it to the hand that are raised. I can see Rosemary, Bashir, I can see Victoria, I can see Okpayemi, and I think one more hand is not visible. Let me open. Yeah, and I can see Sarah as well. Yeah. Wilson, Okpayemi, Sarah, Victoria, Bashir, and Rosemary. Please, let's limit it to those hands. Now, let's make it short. Rosemary, go ahead.
Okay, for what I can predict, I can see capital restructuring coming forth in the sense that they have to start injecting funds by issuing shares because there's no way they can start using their debt is high already, so they can't start borrowing. So the only thing is to start issuing shares. I can see backward integration coming in, like for them now going to the farm to do it by themselves since their product has been rejected internationally due to pesticide. So they can also check on it and look that everything is under control by having a strategic alliance with foreign partners, because after all, they don't have the money for the equipment, for the capital intensive and labor intensive. So they have to look for money to do that. I also see joint venture coming in. I also see government grants. You know, now BOI now their interest rate is just 1 digit, so they can also like house with government grant by. I can see advocacy paper coming in, like for them to justify reason why government should give them the grant. I can see business proposal. Since from I think one of the exhibits they talked about them producing chocolates, and for them to do that, they have to, make a business proposal, make it good enough for people to buy into. Maybe they have partners that want to go into it. And above all this, what made this company to even have this pitfall is I would blame it on the finance, the heady finance and the technical production controller. In the finance aspect, I don't know why a finance officer will allow his cost of sales to be higher than revenue. That means he's not considering his cost price. The selling price is more than the cost price. That's why he's having this pitfall. And the production controller, all the equipment is updated. You can see from the financial statements, the PPE, they're all there. No impairment, no evaluation. Maybe because it does not have the idea of how to go about it. It's supposed to be replacing all these items and getting new ones.
Thank you for that. And very, very valid point. The only one we will not take from you is that you said they should blame the financial controller for those numbers. Please, you are making it, we are finance people. Don't let anybody come and blame us for numbers. We are only preparing and putting those numbers together. Okay, so what I'm just trying to say is that the finance person might just be busy preparing the numbers and it might actually be. So maybe the best way to put that is like the management or even the board. All of them should be held accountable, not just the finance people. But thank you on that. I've also added a word to say, okay, in terms of government support, you mentioned advocacy paper, because obviously if you want to go to government, you must go to government with like fully prepared. And yeah, maybe that's a valid point as well. You mentioned the backward integration, just as highlighted in the strategic way forward, their alliance, strategic alliance, JV or partnership, Yep, I mean, valid points. Okay. Next hand, you can lower your hand and let's make it quick, guys. The next hand is Bashir. Yep.
Hi. Good afternoon. Good evening,
Afternoon.
everyone. Yeah, so to the best of my own knowledge, so I've been trying to look at the Preseen, and I thinking that you should be expecting something like capital restructuring, because if you look at the organization, they're having a negative working capital and negative retained earnings. So I expect to see something like capital reconstruction, because for the company to continue to exist, something has to be done to the organization. And I'm also expecting something like strategic alliance with foreign partners. But before that can actually be achieved, because for someone to come and invest in you, they need to first of all say that you are in a good position. At the moment, the gearing of the company is very, very high, and there is no chance for the company to source for external financing. So with capital with strategic alliance with foreign partners or capital or equity injection, so I expect that the organization should be in a good position. And also, I'm also expecting something like sustainability, because if you look at the one of the key problems of the organization, which is international rejection of products. So I was mentioning something around um, inadequate packaging of product and lack of certification and poor quality control. So and also I also think that backward integration might be very difficult, because this organization is having a poor working capital, negative working capital. It doesn't have cash. So if we are talking about backward integration, the question would be, where does it want to get the fund from? And that can actually be achieved when there is a form of equity injection or alliance with foreign partners. And also looking at the board structure, it appears to be very, very poor. And I also think that there is concentration of power in the hands of Johnson Eze, because he's acting as the ED of finance and strategy. And that could point towards the reason why the organizational performance is very, very poor. So, and looking at this is why I also mentioned about capital reconstruction, is the fact that if we look at the equity section, there is a deposit for shares there that has been sitting there for the last 2 to 3 years. And these are questions that actually need to be asked before somebody can decide to come and inject money into the organization. So those are the things that I just want to just point out. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that contribution. Very beautiful contributions so far. Noting the point so that at the end of the day, we're able to consolidate the point properly and we can say confidently that we are ready for this exam. So 4 more hands, no more hands, please. So the next one is Victoria. Please go ahead.
Okay, good evening. Please, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so while going through the Preseen, one of the things I noted was, they had mentioned the fact that we have to also report on some of the unethical practices or anything unethical we note down while going through the report. So one of the things I noted down was the use of pesticide, and if it had led to the rejection of the products by the international markets, that means it's not safe for consumption. So it also means that the company is not meeting the standard of quality in regards to this cocoa production and its cocoa, the products, and its other, like say, components are being, the different products they derive from the cocoa bean. So that's one of the things I noted. So also, while going through the Preseen, I also noted that there were questions that I wanted to probably get answers to. So I wanted to know what could be the likely questions in regards to strategic analysis. And I also noted that they had mentioned just in time. So I was trying to understand how just in time fits into this particular industry, considering the fact that just in time is one of the reasons we use just in time technique is to, reduce holding costs. So I was trying to understand how feasible for you to, introduce just in time is a large, like the manufacturing company, and most likely they produce FMCGs. And so for just in time, you have to be sure that you can rely on your supplier, because you should be able to meet up with the demand. And so your supplier you shouldn't have like any restriction in regards to getting the raw materials to be able to, get to manufacture your product. So I just was trying to understand how just in time will fit. Then also, for you to introduce just in time, that means you most likely have like a lot of holding cost. So that prompted me to look at the inventory and also the cost of sales. So the inventory reduced year on year. So the only thing I could pinpoint from that is not necessarily the fact that the reduction is actually coming from them not being able to meet up with their payables to the suppliers, like their working capital issue. So it has nothing to do with holding costs per se. And so this is just me thinking out loud how that's strategy will be able to fit into this company or be able to help them, come out from this serious crisis they are in. So the just in time was just not something that I feel would be able to, work. And also, I'm also um in support of strategic analysis, because I understand that if they introduce backward integration, it's going to help resolve some of the issues they have. So issues surrounding insufficient quantities of raw cocoa bean that was mentioned, because if they go back to the farm, they can now expand in such a way, yes, with the introduction of government grants and also some form of capital restructuring, they can be able to, produce the required quantity of cocoa bean that they can, that would help them utilize the machine, efficiently and at maximum capacity. Also, it will also solve the issue of international rejection of the product, because now they can be able to, produce that product in the right to the right standard of quality. So these are the things I noted.
Okay, thank you for that. Noted some of the points there. I think we can just make it a bit shorter so that we can dive a bit deeper more into the analysis. I think we can only entertain 3 more hands. Hopefully no new hand. You can lower your hand now, Victoria. So Okoyemi, you can go next.
Okay, good evening. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can
good
hear me.
evening. Yes,
Okay.
clearly.
Yeah, so I also wanted to talk about that just in time, that based on the report, it shows that there's a delayed payment for suppliers, and just in time only work for them if they have good relationship with their suppliers. And with the way that they have delayed payments, I might as well as the supplier say, the last one you've not paid me. Why should I supply you more goods or more products? So just in time too might not really work with them on the basis that they have delayed payment. And I was also looking at the maybe grants from government. They're already running losses, and it only means that they have to present a very, like, their reports to government must show that, okay, maybe there'll be deferred tax liabilities or something. I don't know how we're going to talk about the tax part. I was just looking at it that if they are getting grants from government, government has to understand what benefit or what way they are coming in. And then I was also looking at sorry, I'm coming, backward integration too. They don't have capital, so I don't know how they want to work on that as well because their money is not even, it's not giving anything at all. And lastly, oh sorry, I'm trying to scroll to the part I missed out on. Yes, they said they want to acquire or do lease a farm. They don't have capital to do that, so I don't know how they are planning to also acquire or lease a farm when they don't have enough capital. So those are the things I saw outside of what others have said.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that point as well. I think we have two more hands. We'll see next. You can go ahead, please. And let's
Okay,
make it quick. Yeah.
okay. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. So reading the question, I couldn't help but notice some short-term things that they could really focus on before they even think about injecting more capital. One of the things they can focus on more is looking at their gross profits, their bottom line. And then it talks about the equipment issues they have, and how the equipment issues is leading to low quality of results, how it breaks down. And then it had me thinking most of the reason or part of the reason why that equipment issue is breaking down is the volume of production that they're having to go through. And the question also mentioned something about when they started, they had mostly largely domestic demands, and then they started having fewer contracts. So what if they now go back to focusing on local demands? That will also help reduce the amount of time they use these local equipment, which prevents further breakdowns. It will also help in reducing the cost of sales because I mean, international sales will also require freight charges and the rest. So by the time they start bringing down their cost of sales from international freight and the rest, it will also help in that aspect of their bottom line. So me, I'm looking at their for the short term measures. They should just focus on local sales, and then they can use maybe profits from that to start expanding.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. And then lastly, Sarah, please.
Okay. Hi, good evening. So I was looking at the finance cost on the statement of profit and loss, and it's actually a lot. I think we can draw a straight line to the short-term liabilities, their borrowings, because that's also enormous in relation to the non-current liability, which is the borrowings there. And I think this puts like a lot of pressure on the company for them to meet these short-term obligations because, you know, you have to pay back in like a year. So I was thinking if they could consider debt restructuring, they can like convert the short-term borrowings to a longer term one, just to reduce pressure and also free up some cash flow. And lastly, I was thinking about if they could factor some of their receivables just to get some cash. Yeah.
So let me restructure this too. Okay, thank you for that as well. And I mean, you guys have said a lot, and your points are valid. And you need to know that the beautiful thing about Preseen case study, when you are in a proper Preseen, I think my camera is off. When you're in a proper case study Preseen simulation class, you should go this way, really. And for those of you that have been listening, the best you can do for yourself is for this point that we are saying, you're thinking that, okay, what is the likelihood of having this? What is the likelihood of not having it? And the most important part is if the likelihood is high or if it has small tendency of coming out, in what shape or how do you approach it? That is how to prepare for this exam. So that think about when you get inside the exam hall now and you see restructuring. We are saying you need to have prepared your mind for restructuring. If you get inside the exam hall and write advocacy paper, we are saying you must have prepared your mind. It is always better if you have prepared your mind for advocacy paper. But imagine that we come up with a suggested solution and say, oh, it is going to be restructuring and advocacy paper. That's what you should be expecting. And you prepare for only those two. And then in your exam, it is now more of even notes to say, oh, come up with a strategy to mitigate risk mitigating and quality control procedure, design it, and or maybe do strategic analysis using SWOT, something that you did not prepare your mind for. And that's where problem comes in. Like I said earlier, I actually, maybe we should go through this last anyways. So I have something here, which, okay, I think let's go this route. So let's go this route. I need someone who can, okay, should we read? Should we read? No. So we have gone through the case together, and I believe we are quite familiar with what is in the case already. And from the few points of yours that you have also raised, very valid point. So the first approach is let's walk through this analysis. Let's walk through this analysis and pay maximum attention now. So this is on the company, and it says to even understand the industry, you know, these are some of the points that we have raised, and the most important thing about this industry that we can see at the moment is that it is underdeveloped in terms of local processing, weak infrastructure, inconsistent government policy, inadequate financing, and poor technology adoption. And this is one thing that have really, crippled that industry. And then if we look at it from the competitiveness side, if you use a model like SWOT, if you use a model like five forces, you would see that the threat of new entrants is moderate because of the capital requirement and the need for knowledge, experience to be able to go into that industry. One of the things that is very high is bargaining power of supplier, which some of you have spotted to be something that is a current problem of Sadeco Limited, in the sense that they are struggling even with payment and all of those. And quality cocoa beans are limited. Exporters are, also competing aggressively for supply. And then the last point says SCPL has damaged supplier relationship due to delayed payment. And then that's quite high. Bargaining power of buyers are also high because of quality compliance. We saw it there that the international market issue have been a big problem, which the position of the company at the moment is quite bad. And then we've even said if they really want to do well in the international market, getting that certification and some standardization is very, very important. So supplier and customer in this situation look quite strong. Okay, so the other side of it also says threat of substitute product, quite moderate. Maybe that's not much of a bigger problem, which is something we can have a look at. And then industry rivalry, that is another high. So we have three high now. So that one is saying the Ghanaian and Ivory Coast processors are quite stronger than Nigeria now. And the international chocolate manufacturers are way higher, and it is also difficult for you to compete with these guys at the moment. So the rivalry is on a high side. And then if you look at this again from another way of analyzing, the industry or the position, more like a business analysis. If you look at it from SWOT angle, just to identify, weaknesses, strengths, opportunities, and threats. We have also summarized that here, which we can go over again. But this is not where we are going to. And then if you also look at it from Pestel, it has also helped you to identify some of the things that we have seen in the case just by grouping it into different categories. So if you look at this, really, if you look at these three analyses, right, and you look at the case we have, and the question you should be asking yourself is, which one is more likely for you to have in the exam, if at all they want you to do a business analysis? That's one question that we will need to answer at the end of the day. So should we practice our Preseen report with Pestel, with SWOT, or with what? With 5 forces? That's one question we need to answer before we leave this class so that we agree. And then the purpose of this we have on the screen, which will be shared with you, is also for you to use it in writing your report. So nothing much. Now, leaving the part of business analysis, right? So if you also look at the finance, like we have already identified, look at it, revenue. Look at the numbers. Persistent losses, even operating loss is negative. Operating position is loss, right? Even gross margin is negative. That's gross loss that we saw, showing inefficient production, in terms of direct cost and all. And if you look at it from the, the analysis for individual year, if you even compare it in terms of year-on-year movement, things are even getting worse. Revenue is even declining. Why? Ha. So that's a very bad one. And then, the analysis says revenue declines significantly due to reduction, production capacity, export market rejection. Gross loss indicates production exceeds sales revenue. Finance costs are excessively high due to turnover. And continuous losses threatens what? Sustainability. And then liquidity, we can also see that the current ratio in the year is in 2022, it was 0.281, and it's even getting worse because it reduced to 0.22. These are things that we can see from these ratios. And if you look at it from quick ratio as well, that one is nothing to write home about, like absolute nothing to write home about, as you can see. And then if you look at debt ratio, uh, the company is just excessively leveraged as well. Like the leverage position is quite high. These are some of the things you will be discussing, but this is not, let's keep moving. Just follow my walkthrough just to summarize some of the points that you're already raising. And then the analysis went ahead to say working capital, there is a big problem there. And the major causes of working capital problem that these guys are having is that there is poor inventory management. There's a weak budgeting system. There is excessive borrowing. There is outdated equipment. There is weak receivable management. And there are even external causes as well. Interest rate is high. Delayed customer payment, inflationary pressure, and foreign exchange challenges. Look at it. Both the outside is not good for them. Internally as well, they are weak. See, trust me, sometimes when you look at all of these problems put together, you are wondering why they should even remain in business, right? And then if you look at the consequences, it says inability to procure materials, production interruption, damage supplier reputation and relationship, increased borrowing costs, loss of market opportunity. And then if you look at recommended solution based on this analysis, it says short-term measure, negotiate debt restructuring, introduce aggressive receivable collection policy, reduce slow-moving inventory, seek overdraft restructuring. Medium-term measures, improve budgeting and cash forecasting, introduce GIT inventory system, improve supplier payment arrangement, and long-term measures, raise equity capital, strategic alliance funding, and invest in efficient machinery. That's on those your working capital situation. And then on the other side, it also says quality control and international market issue. It analyzed that bit as well. And it says the causes of this rejection is due to poor quality assurance procedure, contamination risk, failure to comply with the EU pesticide regulations, weak packaging system, and lack of certification. And consequences could lead to, it could be export market losses, brand damage, like we've seen, increased disposal costs, reduced foreign exchange earnings. And then for improvement now, it says, the food and safety management system, that is ISO 22000, and then HACP procedure, continuous quality audit. These are risk management procedures or quality control management procedures that should be implemented. And the company should also adopt some international certifications, certifications just to ensure that things are put together well and boost their image in the international market. Packaging improvement as well, introduce export grade packaging, improve moisture protection, enhance labeling compliance, supplier development program. These are things that can be done just to boost this. Remember what we are discussing, the quality control and the international market issues, right? And then if we go further to the strategic options, which the questions have rightly listed, is just analyzing those points for you. Backward integration is also something that is feasible in this case. If we look at the scenario, considering that even the company have put it together for you as part of what they are looking at. And then some of the advantages of that would be that the raw materials are guaranteed because you are able to give that to yourself, better quality control, reduce supplier dependence. You won't depend on supplier. And this would, of course, eliminate having to do the JIT, system, potential cost savings. Disadvantages could be that it requires huge capital. There is agricultural risk, and agricultural situation in Nigeria is also something that is a separate conversation because it's very unattractive at the moment due to lack of government support for the industry. And then management complexity. And then we can, the other bit is strategic alliance with international partner. And then we highlighted the advantage to say access to modern technology, improved funding, international expertise, global distribution, and all of these things. Then risk is cultural differences, profit sharing conflict, potential loss of managerial control. And these are some of the risks with the international alliance. And then it says a careful structured joint venture agreement should be established with a clear governance mechanism. And then another option is expansion into chocolate manufacturing benefit, higher profit margin, brand development, export diversification, increased value addition, challenges, and all of these are basically the challenges that you will encounter when you try to then expand further into chocolate manufacturing, which would boost your demand in the local market anyways. And then the other bit is corporate governance and ethical issues. These are also things that we saw to be very strong in this case, like a lot of issues in this case. And then it highlighted issues such as weak oversight of quality control, inadequate risk management, poor financial planning, lack of operational accountability, ethical issues likely to arise in the unseen, product quality misrepresentation, management may be tempted to conceal quality deficiencies to secure international contract, pressure on accountants, finance staff may be pressured to, manipulate financial statement numbers, underestimate liabilities, understate liability, and capitalize inappropriate cost, right? Environmental sustainability issues as well, right? Failure to comply with sustainability, forcing requirements may create ethical concerns. Conflict of interest as well, may arise between the partners that you are trying to have alliance with, or even with suppliers or even customer, right? And then some ethical safeguards might need to be put in place for that. And then if the analysis also said you should look at possible evaluating the financial performance. This one is a no-brainer. It is waiting for you. You cannot do this exam without analyzing the numbers, like we have always said. And then this would require you to do a form of ratio analysis, interpretation of the losses as well, and most importantly, cash flow has been a big problem here, and the working capital bits need to be paid attention to. And then it says you might need to be ready to calculate profitability ratios, liquidity ratios, long-term solvency and efficiency ratio, and most importantly, identify the root cause. Link operational weaknesses to the financial outcome. So you need to be able to bring all of these operational issues when you are analyzing the numbers, right? And then another part which you might see is working capital requirements, and which we have seen to be a very big issue. And then it says possible task could be to advise on liquidity improvement, the inventory management, and also cash flow projection, right? Just to see how things might look like if you implement those strategies. And then it says expected approach should include things like recommending for the inventory now, recommending a GIT system. For the debt restructuring, you might need to look into your ratios properly and also analyze and see how better they can restructure. Like someone was mentioning earlier, we see that bulk of that loan is sitting in current. What strategy can this company implement to make it non-current, or even to look at more of equity, which is longer term in nature. Let's talk about receivable management as well. What can they do to improve that aspect, and maybe renegotiating with suppliers? These are things you can find yourself doing under the working capital bit that you need to pay attention to. Okay. And then the other bit is the strategic alliance. We need to have an open mind to that as well. These are things that even you have raised, because they listed this for us in the Preseen. And what this analysis is telling you is that you need to pay attention to all these areas. So possible tasks could be assess proposed international partnership or evaluate benefit and risk associated with it. And this might include doing a SWOT analysis on the entire market, including the international market and including yourself as well. And then possible risk assessment, financial implication, and governance consideration as well. So these are things that we might need to watch out for when it comes to the strategic alliance. And then another possible requirement is quality improvement and certification. And then maybe something around recommending quality compliance measures to be able to meet the international standard. And this will require you to discuss this point, which we can buttress further on if we are looking at this part as a possible requirement. So it's giving you a hint to say these are things that if they are looking at you suggesting a quality improvement procedures to be able to also meet up the certification requirement for the international market, you should recommend strategies and procedures that need to be implemented to meet those things. And then this analysis is suggesting that you then need to discuss things like ISO 2000, fair trade, staffing, HACCP, staffing training, staff training, and supplier development as well. Of course, these are things that sometimes when the other one is coming out, it will contradict the other one. For example, one of the things we've read earlier is that the possibility of having a backward integration. And if you are engaging in a backward integration, supplier development is not something that should go with that. And then the other bit is corporate governance and ethics, right? So this will also require you to do an analysis and identify all the governance and ethical issues, which we can discuss further on. And then this bit also says possible requirement investment appraiser. We have seen it that they are planning to expand. Sorry, not they are planning. One of the options they have is also to expand. So in this case, they could be looking at acquiring a new machine or assessing like a form of backward integration. If that part is being examined, you'll be expected to do the normal investment appraiser approach, which might require you to use NPV, IRR, or any form of analysis method to just advise on the appropriateness of the investment to go on. Okay. And then the other bit is, these are possible requirements, is risk management. The possibility of you having a risk management, processes being revisited as well. And the examiner can ask you to suggest strategies or maybe develop a risk management framework for them to use, or that is suitable for the company to adopt, right? So areas such as hedging because of the exchange rate volatility is highly considerable. Things like insurance because of quality control issues that they are having is very important. And diversification might be a good one as well from the financial and product point of view, especially with the fact that we have been looking at some things like going into chocolate production and all of those. And another part is also tax issues, right? So tax planning and incentives is also something to pay attention to in this case. Things to consider would be things like pioneer status, capital allowance incentives, export expansion grant, and maybe VAT implications of the activities of that industry as well are things that you need to pay attention to. And at the end of the day, there are possible, this one is basically if we are looking at all of these areas, what are now the strong areas that should drive your conclusions and recommendations. So these are 8 possible areas that you will notice that we have identified all of these 8 areas in our analysis. The only thing we have not really spoken about is that we have spoken about that is not identified in that analysis is maybe government support was not really emphasized. And that should look at there was much emphasis on international certification in that analysis. There was a bit of restructuring, but of the loan, restructuring of the loan, right? Of capital restructuring generally, because it also mentioned something like equity injection and all, right? It mentioned backward integration, it mentioned alliance. Of course, much emphasis on working capital management and relationship, risk and quality control as well. Almost all the things that you have said here have. What we are going to do in this class is also to drill things down. Which one has more tendency? In fact, which one are we going to adapt in our Preseen report as well? We are going to get to that level, right? And I just need you to follow the analysis. So before we go into the next phase of our analysis, so these are, how many areas did we identify? I think about 8. Which aligns with everything we've been identifying. So the first one was I'm going to the beginning of those possible requirements. I think we even have up to 10. Yeah, likely. So here he talked about ratio. He talked about working capital management. He talked about strategic alliance. He talked about quality improvement. So if we want to extract this out, we talked about financial performance evaluation. So I just want to, align it with the one we did as well on the Excel. Because at the end of the day, we then need to also look at which one has more likelihood based on our deeper analysis in this class. Then quality. And then we also ask ourselves which one would require calculation, possible calculation. right? So any question before we proceed from what we've looked at so far?
Are we going to, good evening, Mr. Simon.
Yeah, good evening.
Is there any chance of getting this your notes?
Definitely will be dropped on the group once we are done with, before you start writing the report tomorrow. So,
Thank you.
yeah, apart from that, I even prepared something more robust that you'll be using anyways. So this is just a skeletal analysis directly from, what I use for this one you are looking at on the screen is basically AI to say, okay, so putting the right prompt after analyzing the case study, and then it's basically give all of this. Sorry, I'm trying to see which one I'm missing. So let's say business analysis as well, right? So we've captured it all, I think. We've captured business. How many items? 1, 2, 3. 9 items. So business analysis, financial performance evaluation, working capital management, strategic alliance, quality improvement and certification, corporate governance and ethics, investment appraisal, risk management, and tax issues. And trust me, these 9 areas are looking very comprehensive. They are looking so comprehensive that you can easily be tempted not to even look at any other thing and say this is just enough for you to concentrate your simulation on. The only thing we have captured that is not included here strongly is government support and advocacy, right? And also capital restructuring and maybe board restructuring. So I'll just leave it this way and say this is the summary of all the areas we've been able to capture. And see, without thinking, there's one of these areas, that's 9, 10, let's say 11, 12. There's at least one of these areas that you are 100% sure that you will meet on Thursday. Which one?
Financial performance.
Financial performance.
That one is waiting for you now. It is waiting. So how well you are able to deal with that, there are a lot. There are a lot in that case study. Because think beyond the fact that they gave us numbers. They gave us so much background to these numbers. So much background, industry background, the company itself, so many things that they are facing at the moment that you just have so many information to write well on these numbers, right? So, in fact, the only thing is you still need to open your mind to these numbers, because in the exam now, they can come up with adding 2024, maybe they can even come up with a draft 2024 or information to forecast for future years, basically. Either future years, basically. You understand what I mean? Like, to be able to project. So that's the only thing you need to open your mind for there. And of course, the other bit is that they can also give you breakdown of some numbers. Those are likely probability. But the fact, but it's more likely than not that you will have a question or a requirement on evaluating the performance, right? And the only thing I want you to open your mind to is that they have presented the information so comprehensive that even without analysis, you can already see all the problems. Remember when I was showing you, when I look at a financial statement, operating loss, loss for the year. If I try to look up operating loss, it means everything between the operating loss to loss for the year is nothing to write home about. If I look up further between operating loss and gross loss, it is gross loss, meaning it's just getting worse. There is nothing good about the situation. In fact, if you look at only even the top line, revenue is declining. So they have presented the figures such that it is so glaring that things are so bad. So one of the things I might want you to pay attention to, guys, is that they might not even ask you the generic financial analysis. They can be specific that the problem is just liquidity and gearing, and the ratio you should be calculating is liquidity and gearing. But obviously, we are seeing from here that their problem is not limited to liquidity and gearing. Profitability is also a problem. And when we say profitability now, it's not even the items, but profitability in terms of revenue and cost of sales. That explains the source of this their profitability problem. Your revenue is declining. Your cost of sale is so high. You are nowhere near profitability, good profitability situation. So, meaning financial analysis is likely to cut across profitability, liquidity, and long-term solvency because these three areas are so bad at the moment. In fact, for efficiency as well, because collection issue, payment issue, everything is a problem at the moment. So on that note, that might not be unconnected to the working capital management bit. So it is very likely that your financial performance evaluation and working capital management can be a requirement that can sort of look very likely. A typical requirement one, telling you to analyze the financial performance of the company and also based on the current liquidity or working capital management problems that they are having, analyze and suggest possible solutions to their working capital management problem. So if you see that in a requirement, when we're looking at working capital management in that report, you saw specific things there. That was under requirement what? If you go and look at under working capital management, see, this note is already telling you what you should be doing on the exam day if you see anything on working capital. If you see anything on working capital, we are already telling you that all your discussions should border around JIT, debt restructuring, receivable management, and supplier renegotiation. We'll dive a bit deeper into this, right? So, but this is just what we are telling you. And by the time you look at this now, the probability might be high. And it's possible for them to ask separately or even to is easily merged into the financial analysis requirements. That's what I'm trying to open your eyes to. So this really, I want you to be telling me how you want to classify each of these. High, very, very likely or certain, very likely, 50-50. Unlikely. So maybe we can use this now to approach it next. So financial performance evaluation. Financial performance evaluation, would you put that as very likely or you will say it's certain?
Certain.
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 Is there anything really certain in this ICAN? But let me follow you. Working capital management, based on what we've discussed.
Very likely.
Certain.
Very likely. Very likely. Business analysis. Business analysis. Business analysis is that we are looking at them expecting you to analyze the industry, the company in a more standardized approach, either using SWOT, PESTEL. Trust me, even though you have to do it in your exam, in your Preseen report, but is it very likely?
Very likely.
50-50.
Maybe
Very
50-50.
likely.
Maybe 50-50 or something below 50-50 self. Because it should be likely, not very likely. So maybe 50-50 really. Because trust me, why I'm saying this is that even in your Preseen report, even in the Preseen report, they have given you enough information there. And even some of the information they put there, if you notice, they try to organize it. For example, the industry analysis, they literally organize the SWOT for you there. So maybe
What if it's
likely
not
if they
SWOT?
want you to extend it to the company and include the company's details as well. Yeah,
What
it's
if
also
it's not
possible.
SWOT? What if it's that Potter's diamond?
Exactly. So my concern would be if you have done SWOT for me, and then for what reason would you ask me to use Potter's diamond? And of course, likely, even what is it called? The one we did in that report, 5 horses, is likely. Even pestle is likely. What we are looking at is the probability. And trust me, what I'm also looking at here for us to really consider is that, when you have problem, there will be prioritization. Your examiner will also prioritize. It's looking like there's so much to engage you in this exam that we cannot just engage you in anything that is not super important. Do you agree with me? It looks like there are a lot that we can engage you on in this exam that we just have to engage you seriously. And that's it. So on the business analysis, maybe 50-50 is fine for that. Strategic alliance evaluation. Here we went through that report and it says, where is that? Tell me when I pass it. I think it's up. Yeah, it says assess proposed international partnership, evaluate benefit and risk. Here is that it is likely for you to have a proposal, and that proposal you will be evaluating it from the point of how it benefits you financially. Obviously, some tools that might be used here include things like contribution analysis or a simple profitability analysis where this is what is expected. They will give you numbers and That is basically what you're expected to do when you're giving the normal proposal. These are things that you can check previous diets to see how proposals are usually given, the type of information, and see how to marry it into this when you have strategic alliance. So, but based on our discussion and what we saw, where is that case study again? Where is it? They intend to pursue strategic alliance to this and this and this. Obviously, with the fact that they intend to pursue this, how would you classify this in your exam? How would you classify this out of these 4 categories, guys?
Very likely.
I think I would agree that this is very likely, because this is because of course this company is currently having a problem, and anything that have to do with these options that looks like a way out of their problem is actually very likely, especially when it has to do with areas or strategic proposals that can improve the numbers, that can help them out of the problem. Is very likely, really. So things like working capital, strategic alliance, or even the backward integration that was mentioned here. Where is that? Backward integration.
That
Those
one is
two.
not like they don't have money for it.
Yeah, so which is one thing that you would think of and say, how do they want to achieve it? So remember the way we do things in SFM, that it's not about whether you have money for something. It's actually about whether you can source for money, financing decision. So the only thing is, if you propose this to the board now, right, the board will ask you, how will it be funded? Right? So it's the same question. How will it be funded? There is no money. How will it be funded? So if there is a solution, then it can work. And that is it. So this is also an area that you probably want to classify as maybe between very likely and 50-50. Right? So maybe 50-50 now. Or would you prefer very likely?
Yeah, we see the source of finances at 96% leverage ratio already. I mean, what source of finances will be available to finance such a project?
Exactly. So, but what if they engage in a form of restructuring, right? Let's say, for example, the way restructuring is already part of what they want to pursue here. If you look at this, they are considering financial restructuring and working capital management strategies to be revisited. And on that note, they are looking at seeking equity investments from a private equity firm, venture capitalist, or a strategic partner to inject new working capital into the business. And they are looking to adopt a JIT and develop a financial plan, budget focus, and all of this, you know. So these are something that if they are able to implement it and convince investors, look at it. If they are able to implement a financial restructuring and convince investor, then investor might actually come in. And coming in, so this is now something, in fact, let me just put this now and say maybe this in a bucket. Since they specifically mentioned it, so I would say, do we have restructuring captured separately? Yes. We captured the restructuring separately and then working capital management separately. So on this, maybe we can merge it, right? And say, so if you are able to achieve this, then there is no problem achieving this one. That's my point. So if this is very likely, then it is actually possible for you to put this as either very likely or 50-50. That's my point. So if this is not working, you are not able to restructure finance successfully and implement a good working capital management system, obviously, there is no way to embark on any new project. Just abolish any mission to invest in a capital project. So we're trying to drill down to, and hopefully have a landing position. Before we continue, Okweyemi, you have a question or comment? Okweyemi, your hand is raised.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know you told me to speak. Okay,
Yeah,
so I just wanted to draw your attention to the part that has that backward integration.
yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. Backward integration.
Yes, there's a part that says consider acquiring or leasing cocoa farm to ensure a stable supply. So I was looking at it that is it possible for them to now give us maybe a lease question?
Considering acquiring or leasing cocoa farm to ensure a stable supply of high quality cocoa, and all of this. This approach will require substantial capital investment and managerial expertise, right? From form partnership with cocoa farmers through cooperative or outgrow scheme, providing them with training, input, financial support, and all of that. So this is still capital intensive. And that is the major question here, which is why someone questioned earlier that why would they want to embark in all of this when they have not figured out their finance? So what we are looking at here is that there's a bigger problem that we are dealing with, such that consider to acquire or to lease a cocoa farm might be list of a problem inside millions of problems. And it's possible for you to have that. Oh, an option under this. They are now considering whether to acquire or lease a cocoa farm. But is this very likely, or I would say not very likely? Not very likely. Things like maybe they want to ask you, the option of consider should they acquire or lease a cocoa farm, right? It is possible, but it is very unlikely. Do you know why? They have a bigger problem. Their problem is not, they are not okay to be evaluating which one is more economical. Should I borrow to buy a cocoa farm, or I should lease a cocoa farm? You will realize that is not, they have other fundamental issues to sort before they get to this level, if you get my point. So it is when they get to certain level that we should now consider this. So, of course, like we said, there is a possibility, but that possibility will be driven by successfully implementing this system of new financial management around the capital restructuring and working capital management. If that part is feasible, is able to be achieved, then they are now looking for the best way to implement the backward integration, and they are also now considering a cheaper way to get a farm. Then that is when they'll be looking at whether they should, how they want to acquire a farm, basically, whether through lease or to buy, either through borrowing or if they have the money, of which they don't have. And then, so three options really: to acquire, to lease, or there is even an option here saying to form a partnership. So we can say acquire, lease a cocoa farm, or form partnership with farmers. So this has possibility, but the likelihood is very low. Now, if this is coming for you, it shouldn't be much of a big deal. It's just a matter of giving you numbers and telling you to evaluate each of those options and compare. And like I will always tell students, the calculation is not the most important thing in case study. your calculation, your appendices, is not the most important thing. The purpose of the appendices is to support your analysis. The most important thing is the analysis. The report you're writing, analyzing findings, and all of those things is the most important thing before any other thing. And that is something to pay attention to. Okay. Okay, so more comments, more comments. There are other areas we need to talk about. We'll talk about those areas, and I will also give you some that I've done a deeper dive on. I'll give you some that I've done a deeper dive on, and then we'll now land in a point where we'll say, okay, these are the ones we want to go and do in our Preseen report, and I will share all the materials with you, and then you can use it to consolidate your report. So let's have a 5 minutes break, and we continue. And when we come back, I want us to use a maximum of 40 minutes and we round up.
Sorry, sir, my hand is raised.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Just a quick one. From your last statement, you said the calculation is less important. How will your report be correct if your calculations are not correct? Won't your calculation affect your report?
Yeah, absolutely. The calculation is the basis for the report you're writing, and your calculation should be very, very accurate so that what you are writing is accurate. And that is it from an ideal perspective. From the exam perspective now, I am saying it categorically that this is not for you to calculate wrong numbers or say calculation is not important, right? But I'm saying you do not dwell on the correctness of the calculation you are making to spend, because remember, you've got limit. In fact, the first question you would wonder is, or the first thing you should wonder is, how will ICAN expect you to do this or solve this? Do you know how many problems these guys are having that ICAN want you to solve in 4 hours? You get. So that should already tell you why the calculation is not even important. Maybe I should say that carefully. That should tell you why the report you are writing for the purpose of that exam is more important than the calculation. So don't dwell on the correctness of the calculation and say, because what happened is people dwell on the correctness of that calculation and they spend so much time and they will not be able to write a good report, right? And waste all the time on appendices. And at the end of the day, there's nothing to show for the calculations you are doing. So do your calculation, make it very quick, straight to the point. Don't dwell on correctness where you even need to make assumption and move on. Make assumption and move on. Do you know why? This exam, in fact, let me give you an example. An investment appraiser is tested, maybe on the backward integration. Oh, they need to inject 50 million. Oh, using an NPV approach, maybe, advice on whether that question, this case study is not testing whether you know how to calculate NPV or not. That's my point. SFM, it has been tested there. Taxation, there is advanced tax that is testing whether you know tax incentive and all of those things. There is those things there. Those things are already tested in a separate subject. Ratio analysis, see, is a separate topic in many courses, right? That this is not a paper that you now need to start dwelling on. Let me go to the balance sheet, for example. Someone can easily get stuck and say, this debt ratio, should I include this borrowing under current liability? How can I include borrowing under current liability? But I think it's usually the borrowing under non-current, and someone is dwelling on that and waste all the time. What we are saying is, work with your assumption and move on. If you, obviously, my own assumption in this case is I can easily pick up the borrowing, both the one under current and the one under non-current, and use it as my debt. and I move on. Someone can decide to add bank overdraft as well as part of the borrowings. Yes, and that person will be. So that is what we are saying, that you don't dwell on the correctness of the. Just be consistent across your calculation. For areas like maybe if you are comparing lease or buy as well, just work with the normal knowledge you have acquired in SFM, where you need to make reasonable assumptions. And for example, this is not where you will be asking me that, let's say the tested list now. This is not where you'll be asking yourself, this capital allowance, should I start from year 0 or year 1? Should I start from year 0 or year 1? That's a perfect example. Guys, do you need to spend time thinking too much about that? I'm asking.
No.
No. Make your assumption and move on. Somebody is chasing you. You are running. Make your assumption and move on. It's not important here. So that is what we are saying when we say the calculation is not very important. Work out your appendix as soon as possible and write your reports. It's very key. The calculations are things that are assumed to be. Let me remind you by using this your case study. Presenting appropriate appendices. How many percent?
10.
So if you like, use 2 hours out of 4 hours for 10 marks. You know you're in trouble now. You know you're in trouble. 2 out of your 4, 3. Some people will even use 3 hours. 3 hours out of your 4 hours. Use it for appendices. So the appendices is not bad. It is very, very important. It is to support the report you're writing, so it's good. But realistically, between you and I, this is not between you and the examiner, between you and I, right? Ensure you do very fast with your appendices and write a good report, a well-structured report, a report that addresses the problem that they're talking about. After all, in a case like this, you can see that there are so many areas that are qualitative that will not even dwell so much on the calculations you are going to do in this exam. So those are the things you need to pay attention to, and it actually do matter on the success of this exam you are about to write. So pay attention to it. Time management. So we go on a quick break now for 5 minutes. Let's come back by 11:07. Right? Is that okay? And then we spend about 30 to 40 minutes and wrap it up. We are getting there already. And trust me, I already have some. I just want us to do this together. So what I've also done is can you see my screen? Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, same here.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've actually tried to put a structure that you guys are going to follow in your what is it called? In the report you are writing tomorrow, just to make it easy, because I know you guys are very busy at the moment. A typical structure that you should follow, what the content should look like, and what I would expect in your executive summary, even the introduction, what I would expect to see there. And I've done a bit of analysis for you already, you know, and then the profitability analysis, the financial analysis rather, profitability, liquidity, long-term solvency, going concern assessment, which is the liquidation part that I was talking about earlier. We are going to speak about that shortly. SWOT analysis, if they decide to bring SWOT on the company itself, and governance and the ethical issues. I try to do a deep dive on that aspect as well, just to help. And then if you see something on advocacy paper, just how to prepare for that as well. And I want to also see it in the Preseen. And then request for the government intervention be still on the advocacy paper. This is still on the advocacy paper. And then some other aspect like the strategic alliance that we are speaking about, and other areas that you need to pay attention to. So we are going to walk through this, and this is what we are going to use to wrap up the lecture, really. This is what we're going to use to wrap up the lecture, but we need to, of course, analyze. We get there and then we wrap up. We agree on what we want to go and do in your Preseen report tomorrow, and that will be it. And then The remaining thing will be for us to follow the timetable. So this is 11. So we come back by 11:10. We keep adding the time. Dubem, will you wait for us to come back before your question,
Yes,
or
yes,
you
yes.
want to?
I thought we had finished the class. That's why.
Oh, we're not done. We're going on a break, and then we will come back by 11:10. Thank you. Let me expand this a bit. All right. So, yeah, let's continue. So the next one is quality improvement certification, right? And we want to, this is also one area that we have identified. And in terms of the strategic plan, let me go back to that. In terms of the strategic plans, the actions, the company said, I'm trying to go back to that bit. It says they are planning to implement a robust quality management system, incorporating stringent quality control procedure throughout the production process, from raw material sourcing to all of this. Considering this, they are looking at implementing all of these things that they have mentioned. So now, if they are already looking at this, is it likely to come as a requirement? Guys, I hope you guys have not slept off.
So what was the question, please?
So
Yeah,
our question is that one of the areas that is very big as well, right, is the quality control and certification issue. But what they have done in this case is that if you look at what we are looking at, they say strategic direction, the way forward. To address these challenges and restore profitability, SCPL board has adopted a comprehensive strategy focusing on resolving financial constraints, enhancing product quality, and expanding market reach. The key component of these strategies are as follows. So this is also literally telling you some of the things that the company is already considering. So one of it, like I said, is that this is already captured. So if this is already captured, is it likely that ICAN will now give you an additional requirement under this? Or what is it likely that you'll be facing in the exam under this? Without wasting much time, right? The best way to classify this really is maybe a 50-50, on the basis that they have given you the plan of the company, which looks very good enough, and all you need to do is maybe this is something that should be driving your um, conclusions and recommendation, right? For example, there should definitely be a conclusion around the fact that this is a non-negotiable thing, and recommendation should be that the company need to see this through, really, to ensure that all these things are implemented to boost the image of the company again, especially in the international market. So this is something that should be flowing into the report naturally, with the fact that this is a natural problem. It should be flowing into the report naturally rather than being a specific requirement. So on that note, I am actually looking at it as something that maybe 50-50% of being classified as a separate requirement. And yeah, do you have a differing opinion?
No,
unlikely.
unlikely, sir.
Yeah. So, okay. And then the other bit is corporate governance issue. And then you see these bits. Is this something? Number one is financial restructuring, quality improvement, backward integration, strategic alliance, and then fifth is risk and mitigation. And nothing here speaks about this, right? So it means the board is not even considering themselves, and that's it. So this one is also something that is very big in this case, as you can see, governance and ethical issue. But you see that in the plan of the board, they have not considered themselves now. Or have you seen any plan to bring at least an independent board member? Or have you seen any plan to revisit the management structure? Or have you seen anything around the ethical issues that is ongoing, or even the likelihood of having some discrepancy or accounting misalignment? Or even, some funny things, even quality related, right? That we have seen in the case. Not
Yeah, I
quality
mean,
control now, but in terms of quality, like compromisation, right? So these are things that we have not seen the board, right? Because if you look at this, even though we are seeing some, mitigation strategy, but we are seeing that it is not specifically looking at that at the board level. And that is something that, and also, guys, considering that this is a big topic in case study anytime, any day, considering that this is a big topic anytime, any day, listen to me. Let me support my assertion with a fact, with a proper backup. This note here is always in every diet, and it says, of the total marks available, 20% will be assigned to the executive summary session of your response, and approximately 10% will be assigned to proper consideration of ethical issues within your answer to the requirement. Although ethical issues might not even form a specific requirement on the paper, as it has been tested in other subjects, but it will be tested within the requirement. And the things to watch out for, they listed in for you: lack of professional independence or objectivity, conflict of interest among stakeholders, doubtful, all of these things. What it means is that between you and I now, you are going to do this one. So let me just say certain. Between you and I. And I'm going certain because I want to see it in the Preseen report. Then on exam day, whether they asked or not, you must create a session to discuss the governance and ethical issues in SCPL. Let me give you that header already. Governance, although it's in that report, governance and ethical issues in SCPL. This is where your subject should be, and you are doing it. So it's certain. If they ask as a specific requirement, well, we have already we've discussed it. If they did not ask, you must create that heading and do it. The only thing is that, if they did not ask, listen, if they did not ask, you cannot write 3 pages. 1 page is enough to just highlight the key ethical and governance issues. 1 page or even half a page if possible, if time is not permitting. If they did not ask, ensure you understand what I'm saying in this aspect. If they did not specifically ask, half a page or maximum of a page is enough. Just highlight the key ethical issues and also ensure it flows to your recommendation. And that's what I would expect you to do. If they now ask as part of the requirement, then you have a serious business to do, as we have already discussed. So let's put certain there. Are we on the same page on that?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Does that mean we are incorporating number 12 to this corporate ethics and governance and ethics?
Yes, and that would be it. Because by the time you look at restructuring board and management, what are they doing? You are not doing any calculation, hope you know. So because you are not doing any, because there is no calculation, it is more of an advisory thing. The best place to incorporate it is, which is very correct and well captured. That needs to be discussed under corporate governance. In fact, let's remove corporate. So governance and ethical issues. So that will be discussed under governance and ethical issues, where you are talking about the fact that management is this, management is that. And at the end of the day, we want to see your recommendation. I want to see it. ICAN is still far. Me, I want to see it tomorrow.
Sorry, what was the requirement? I didn't get it.
The requirement is that you can see what we've simulated. So we are saying governance and ethical issues, certain. We have had some discussions around it where I referenced the fact that this is an embedded requirement in ICAN exam, these bits. And what we are saying is that you are doing it. Let's agree, we are doing it. So if I can now decide to ask as a specific requirement, well and good, we'll deal with it. If they did not ask, you still need to do it, because as you can see here, and also because in this case, this diet is a big deal because it's a lot going on. And what I've now said is that to manage your time, if they did not specifically ask, ensure you manage the information you are dishing out. Maybe half a page or maximum of 1 page is enough for that. And that is what we have said. And of course, these are things that we have also discussed in the report we were going through the other time. So they are all the points you need to discuss. We have already identified them now for you, except if in the exam they now give you additional points around maybe window dressing, things like maybe some of the numbers are cooked, then more information for you, right? So so we put certain on that. Investment appraisal, we said it is very likely, but that will be contingent on these guys being able to implement financial restructuring and proper working capital management system before they can, because now things are not good at all with numbers, right? So then the next two, so we can take off this one and then we can bring this in as number 10. Yeah. So the next one is risk management. Risk management. You would realize that all the things that has to do with risk has already happened. So reputation is already damaged in the international market. It looks like money itself is everything has already leaked. Maybe the poor control system itself. People have siphoned funds. I don't even know. I'm just guessing further, right? So risk management system is not in place. If it exists, it has failed, such that if they are asking for these bits, quality improvement, it might then be more encompassing to include quality control and risk management procedures as well that the company can adopt. So this is something that we probably want to put a 50-50 on as well, to say, considering these big issues that this company is facing, these things are likely. Most of these things are actually likely that they ask you some questions on this. And the good thing about it is that all these things are, remember that the report I was showing you, these things, we have already analyzed and captured the things you should be focusing on if at all you need to discuss. Remember that we have already identified the things that you need to pay attention to if you need to discuss those areas. So it's not a problem. Okay. Then the other bit is tax issue. Tax is even mentioned as part of your JD. As part of your JD. So tax, the only thing is that if you have to do anything tax, it's still a note that will not be a standalone requirement. So this is also something you want to give 50-50. And this tax is also very connected with advocacy paper. Advocacy paper, it will come out if you are looking the route of the fact that this company as well as the industry that they operate is no longer supported like the way government used to support this industry before. But let's not forget that even government is already intentional about the industry. Remember, we read that part. Which exhibit was that? Where they said, look at this. Where is that? Sorry. Yeah, where they said, look at it. Recent years has brought a renewed focus on the cocoa sector, recognizing its potential. I'm looking for somewhere. Variety of initiatives such as have been launched. Look at it. Now, government initiatives, programs have been introduced to support farmers by distributing improved seedling, providing subsidized input, rehabilitating old farmers, investing in R&D, and you see private sector's involvement as well. See international collaborators. You see focused, sustainable practices and value additions. Now, this is where the advocacy bit is coming. Where I think, is there another part where we read government? While government policy exists to promote growing industry, their implementation has not been consistent and ineffective. Enforcement of quality standard and regulation is weak. Okay, so maybe this is also something that can drive further recommendation through advocacy. But what we are saying here is that government is already interested. Government is already interested. So if you are looking, if they are going to test advocacy, it's probably going to be 50-50. It is not something that is very likely. The only reason it might be 50-50 safe, if not unlikely. The only reason it might be 50-50 is if they are not going this route. You know, you have been following this class, I believe. You know, if they are not going the route of restructuring, if these guys are not going the route of restructuring and working capital management, the only other route that is available to get the numbers on track is government support. Are you with me? On the numbers,
Yes, sir.
before we even talk about all these other issues, strategic alliance, quality improvement, governance, investment appraisal, leave those ones aside first. On the number, way forward first, to first of all guide, right? You need to restructure or work on your working capital so that you can see front. It's only when you can see front before you consider those other things, right? The other option, if you are not restructuring, is government support, like we have identified. In fact, there's a third option. In fact, maybe this is another high-level analysis that we need to bring out as a very big way out. Things that you can only have one out of these three. One. One is, or maybe they can put it in the form of options. One is restructure, treat your working capital, put them in a good position so that you can see front. Or run to the government and capitalize on the fact that this industry needs to move forward so that it won't die. And you know that you can easily put that government in a position where they must be willing to support because this is an industry that they have shown interest, right? The other option is Oga, go out of business, liquidation. These three options are also like something you need to have a look at and know that for this company generally, these are three things that they need to see. But it doesn't look like liquidation is an option because they have already told you that the board is considering so many things. So the one that will still have a least possibility is liquidation. Now, in what the board is considering, they have also not talked about government support. If you notice, what they have been talking about is more of them restructuring and then considering things like alliance, backward integration, and all of those. So in the exam, If they have asked for restructuring and there is nothing on government support, there is nothing on advocacy paper, what I would expect you to do is still to give recommendation that will lean towards them making attempt to write to the government to increase the support for the industry. This can be a very solid recommendation of yours. That, oh, in the exam, oh, maybe you open the exam and you did not see anything on advocacy paper. Is that clear? Are we together on that? I just need to be sure somebody is still in this class.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes,
you
sir.
open the
Together.
exam, nothing on advocacy paper. There must be recommendation on this government support. You need that recommendation that will be up to 4 lines, where you are talking about the fact that the company should seek government support, from the angle of there is already a material for you to reference. Support around tax, around interest rates, around many things that were highlighted in that report we're going through earlier. Where is that? We'll go through that again. Okay, so you need to give that. Then if you now see an advocacy paper, of course you have also prepared for it. And that is what we are doing in this class, right? So we are not going one way. We are preparing for anything that comes your way. And then we said, from everything that we have also seen, ICAN can come in the unseen and tell you that they have now done a further evaluation, maybe in 2024 financial interim, the financial statement draft for 2024, and it's looking like there's no way out and they want to liquidate. So we are telling you to still open your mind to this. But of course, that will now be a case of maybe you looking at, you evaluating how they want to settle, settle who, how much will be left to settle this person, what would you recommend, as to,
Sorry,
and all
Simon,
of
if they're
those.
liquidating, why do we still need advocacy paper and governance and ethics and all that stuff? I mean, they're going out of business. What do we need that for?
No, don't misunderstand my point. So what we are saying is that these are 3 possible things that can happen, right? So, and one thing I also mentioned is that they cannot do this. These are mutually exclusive events. So we said one of the things that they need to do if they really want to keep being in business is they need to restructure and or work on their working capital situation as well to be able to see fronts before they can even consider the other option of strategic alliance, investments, and all of those. And we said if they are not restructuring to be able to get the finance to a good position, the other option is to run to the government. And that is what brought us to the second one, government support. And we said if they are not seeking for any of this, and you are not looking for a way to, because these are looking like the 2 possible ways to improve the numbers. If you are not doing this to improve the numbers, forget about international certification. The international certification and all of those is still far. You get, forget about strategic alliance. You need to put your house together first before any international partner will even, you must show that seriousness that you want to do that before any international partner will. If you are not choosing any of these 2 that is highlighted, then the third option is go out of business. So that is what we have said. I don't know if it makes sense now. So go out of the business, the way we have now discussed it is that, maybe in the exam, they now said maybe after considering the draft 2024 results, the board has now reconsidered that liquidation might also be an option. And then maybe they're asking you to evaluate if with what has been going on and with what they have also seen, and maybe, additional information, advice on whether the company should proceed with liquidation. So, and maybe that can also be a consideration. But of course, I said, this is low, extremely low, and low because management has shown their intention here. Look at it. Management has shown their intention here clearly. The board rather has shown their intention towards the fact that they want to get finance things back on track, and they want to also explore the other strategies that will help them to put the company in good shape. So this one is very, very likely. The one of government support, which is advocacy now, I will put it as uh, very unlikely, or I'll put what are you comfortable putting in that? Maybe 50-50 or unlikely. I think I'm fine with anything between 50-50 and unlikely for advocacy paper, really. So the question we need to then ask ourselves at this point is, what are the things you have highlighted as certain or very likely?
Well, for me, I think investment appraisal is very likely.
We said these are very likely. We said this is certain. We assign this as certain. And then investment appraiser, we said, should we put this as very likely as well? Because this is where the backward integration also falls in. If you are doing a backward integration, if you are doing any form of investment, it to come as like a form of investment appraiser or proposal that you need to evaluate. Okay, so if we categorize this as very likely as well, you would then be able to bring it down to the fact that you are doing financial analysis. You are doing financial analysis. That one is certain, right? Except if I can surprises you, which is possible. And we said governance and ethical issue. Let's put it as certain because we're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few questions, like three on this, on the numbers. I don't know, maybe after the class I can ask them or as we go on.
Yeah, maybe when we are done with this simulation, then we can look at any other question on the numbers, if that's fine. Okay, so I think Victoria as well, your hand. Is that a quick one?
Yeah, so it's on the timeline for this class. I just want to know because I had earlier planned 3 hours, so I want to know how long.
Yeah, sorry, we're already wrapping up. That's why I'm also like trying to wrap up at this point. So we're just trying to drill down. So we shouldn't use I said 40 minutes earlier, but let's see if we can wrap up in maximum of 15 minutes from now. Okay, so we have those two that we have designated as certain, and we want to see it in the Preseen report, right? So your financial analysis, certain, governance, certain, and these three areas, these three areas, these three areas, these three areas, very likely for financial restructuring and working capital management related, very likely for strategic alliance evaluation and investment appraisal. Do you know the only thing I can tell you is that they cannot ask for these three at the same time. They cannot ask for these three at the same time in the same question. It will be too much. So it will be a whole lot of work that you cannot do anything close to maybe finishing, right? So on that note, is either they are now giving you a question to evaluate a capital investment appraiser or a proposal to but they are likely because they've listed them here as part of the plan. So they will definitely give you data in any of those. So you need to prepare your mind on this particular one. Now, on the restructuring and working capital management bit, this one I will actually do something and put in that report before I share with you tomorrow morning. I will do something on this bit because this looks very, very high. It looks like it has a very, very high tendency of coming out. And I will want to see you do something on this. I'll give you a prompt on my report that will guide you in writing this in your report. And then this particular one, this strategic alliance and investment appraiser, all you need to do in the Preseen report is demonstrate that when you see a question on it, you know the approach to adapt and you know all the possible approach that they may ask you to adapt and you know how to deal with it. And that's all you need to do. Another area that we are also not paying attention to is, which the question has really emphasized on, is the quality improvement. Because if you look at this bit, they mentioned this, right? And they have talked about all the area, all the ways they want to improve the they want to improve the quality. And I want you to know that these are areas that even if it doesn't come as specific requirement, there is need for strong conclusions and recommendations in this area. And I want to see that in your report, right? So we'll just leave it at 50-50, but we want to see strong conclusions and recommendations in those areas. Your financial analysis is certain, and then this other area we have basically classified them. Yeah. So let's now go through some of the analysis that we've done here and wrap up. So the purpose of this report is also to like guide you, even though I will finalize it before sharing. Some of the things I'm still going to put together before sharing with you tomorrow morning. I will need to sleep, of course, after this class, and then spend like 2 hours thereabout finalizing it, and then drop it on the group for you.
Yeah, what are we to use
Or
the
on the
report
drive.
onto?
Is that what?
What are we to use it to do?
Anything you want to use it for. So it's just as a guide, really. So
For the okay, but the report we are writing, right? We are submitting. We're still submitting tomorrow.
yes.
Okay. Okay. So
Yes. So the purpose of the report you are writing is that no matter what you are seeing, no matter what I'm sharing with you, you still need to write a report on this Preseen to guide and prepare yourself for the exam. Because, for example, let me share. So let's okay. Time will not permit us to read. But we have a structure here showing. If I click on this one, for example, where is the financial analysis? So if I click on this now, so this is the profitability analysis of SCPL. And then it says the profitability, this is what has happened over the years and all the operating losses, the loss and everything that has happened. And you see this detail is so much that you will not be able to write this level of detail in the exam. Do you agree with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And then if we go under liquidity, you see another level of very detailed report that looks like you cannot just be able, you will not just have enough time to write this in the exam, right? And you see the same thing under long-term solvency. I try to include going concern assessment just to, sort of mirror the fact that there is still room for liquidation option in this exam. You cannot write it off completely. Sorry, let me even start from the beginning. I think I included an intro as well. An intro basically follow what we've discussed in our previous case study class to talk about the company, tell you about what the report contains, and at the end of the day, put a disclaimer to say this report has been written based on the information provided and from which our conclusions and recommendations are drawn before the financial analysis as the next session. Because you can see that this part is detailed, so detailed because it is very likely, almost certain that you will have it. Right? And then there is SWOT analysis. I would want you to use SWOT in your report, right? And SWOT because SWOT will always prepare you for any So we are using SWOT because not because it's very certain that SWOT is going to come out. In fact, how did we classify business analysis? We said 50-50. We are using SWOT because SWOT is just that model that will prepare you for any likely model. If you have applied SWOT to identify strength, opportunity, weakness, and threats, that would have prepared you to identify so many variables so that if in the exam you now see pestle, all you need to do is regroup your points. If you see 5 forces, regroup your points and follow the model that is now being asked. If it is Porter's, any model is so pestle SWOT will always prepare you for any business analysis that I can want to test. But the probability of testing or having a business analysis is low. So we have this to guide you, and the purpose of this is not for you to copy and paste. When we are reviewing, we will now identify those of you that probably, okay, I'm not, because I'm sending this to you and we are doing this together, it's actually allowed if you pick up some point here, but I'm just saying that use this to now write your own reports, right? It's very important. And then another session we put here is on the corporate governance and ethical issue. You will see a detailed analysis of the board situation, the management situation, the control system issues, and all of these things identified and discussed in detail, as you can see, including sustainability that we mentioned earlier, grouped under the governance issue as well, and stakeholders treatment. And you see a very detailed analysis here on that aspect, as you can see. And then another aspect you are seeing is the advocacy bit, right? And that was done, including the aspect of how government can intervene, and the economic benefit of that as well. And of course, for each session, I try to put conclusions which you can summarize in your own conclusion session. And then the other bit which we have talked about in the likely unseen requirements includes the strategic alliance and then the investment appraiser in terms of acquiring new machine or even a form of backward integration, which this part, I don't need you to do anything. As you can see, I haven't formulated any number. All you need to do is probably to maybe write a note to demonstrate that if such proposal comes, you know how to use NPV approach or any similar approach to evaluate and be able to give a recommendation if it gives a positive NPV or so. And that is the purpose of this report. So I'm also going to, like, possibly, if time permits, maybe put in a more robust analysis of the numbers from my Excel and just of the figures, really, so that for the appendices part, you just copy and paste and don't waste your time, at least for the numbers that we have so far. And that is what we have so far. So the other bit I am planning to include is I think this, if I go to this one, the working capital analysis in this one as well is also something we need to pay strong attention to. Yeah, which I might also expand further on this before I share with you. Yeah, and that's the only thing that I might certainly want to include by next morning before sharing. I think that's basically it. So let me know if you've got any question on this, and then we can wrap it up. So you know what the plan is still. So you want to spend tomorrow writing this report in your own way. And remember our report structure. You have the sample report in the case study folder. Write your report in your own way, using it to draft your own plan, your own game plan for the exam, right? And then we'll come on Sunday to spend 1 hour going through some of the reports ahead of Wednesday night. And that is where we are. So the takeaway from everything we've discussed so far is that financial performance, certain governance and ethical issue, non-negotiable, we are doing it, right? Other areas that are very likely include financial restructuring and working capital management, very likely strategic alliance, and also investment appraisal. And then we said the quality improvements and certification as well as risk management match together. Very likely, but if you are doing anything here because of the level of information you've been given, you are likely to be, including it in your other areas that you're analyzing and ensure you capture it in your recommendation that they should actually see it through, because this is something that will help them to boost their international image, really. And on that note, by the time you look at all this proper simulation that we have done, the areas that are likely, the areas that are not likely, or the area that are just 50-50, I will plead with you again that I'm also going to share this report, this analysis with you.
What?
Yeah, because you realize that this is the one that simulated all these possible areas, if you remember, right? So, and by the time you now spend time reading this one again, how many pages? 11 pages. By the time you read this again, that will now broadly prepare you for the things to bear in mind if you see any of these 10 areas. The only thing we have now done is that we are picking these 10 areas, we are picking the likely areas out of these 10 areas, and we're now dwelling more in them in this my draft report, which should now guide you in the report we are writing. And that is the landing point for this class. So let's ask questions now, and we need to wrap up as soon as possible. Yeah, questions.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Please, just to be sure, what time do you plan on dropping this so you can be, waiting for it?
Yeah, so I need to sleep, and then we wake up, and then I'll try to send it before 10 a.m. I will send this, I can send this one, I can upload this one tonight, so that those of you that want to start drafting the structure of your report already, you can start drafting, and then I'll finalize this one and share before 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Simeon, so first I wanted to ask, the figures are way too big, like in the financial statement, they are just unnecessarily large. So I was thinking, right, how about maybe rounding up to 1 million? Is it going to affect anything? You see, they just put the whole figure without rounding up.
Yeah, and it looks like it will actually be wasting your time to be typing all of this in your calculator in the exam.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say maybe it's like inventory is 72.29 and move on from there.
Simon, I believe if they wanted to do that, they would have done that, honestly. Because I can't usually just, if they want to do that, they will have put that ab initio.
It's just, yeah, actually. And it's just annoying that they are putting all this big number, and they think you people will be using Excel. They don't know that it's calculator
So I
816
mean,
901 87.
yeah, I mean, because this is not like a garbage in, garbage out type of examination. So I can put it in my header to say rounded up to 1 million. That is naira 000 naira million.
Make your assumptions and move on.
In fact, what I would even expect you to do is, first, you don't need to show any of this number in your calculation. You are just working with this sheet and you are showing your ratios, just computing. The highest you will probably do is formulas. For example, I want to compute a particular ratio, and I say this ratio is profit before interest and tax over revenue. I write the formula. The next thing is in my calculator, I type what I want to and then press equal to and type the percentage, write the percentage in my note, such that I'm not writing the big figure. And in terms of the calculation, in terms of rounding it, even in your calculator, when you are pressing it in, you can do that. Just ensure you are approximating appropriately and be consistent with your approximation so that it doesn't distort. Once you are consistent with anything you are doing, trust me, you can always move on. Like someone said, just work with your assumption so far it's reasonable and you're moving on. Examiner can never mark you wrong on the basis that, no, why did this person approximate? There can never be. This is even case study. So there can never be anything like that. So move on. And thank you for asking that question. Anything that will make these numbers to slow you down, run. Yeah, make that assumption and move on. And move. And it is as simple as that. So it's fine to do that.
And are we
Okay.
likely to have another financials in this on
Absolutely. Very, very likely, the way ICAN does it. One thing we have mentioned is the likelihood of them giving you 2024 draft, the likelihood of them even wanting you to do like a forecast. We've talked about those things. So it is very, very likely that you have additional years, either a draft or maybe for you to do a forecast, and based on this, and other information that they will give you, now do a forecast. So it's possible.
Are we going to
Okay,
do
so
trend
Simeon,
analysis and common size?
Yeah, of course. And I might even do that. I will include that in your report, so that you don't, right now you don't have time. So that you can include that and move on. But of course, it's just 2 years, so nothing. Just do changes between this 1 year and then maybe common size. Yeah. Just that these numbers, everything is bad.
2024 has
Okay.
somehow improved.
You said
And
what?
then I said the 2024 financial may somehow turn out to be better than these two. And then on that bit, maybe the main concern assumptions we then note.
Exactly. And then if it has now gone worse, that is something that can now push them towards liquidation, right? So, which is why we said we must have our mind open in that aspect as well. Yeah, I think that's basically it. So let's
okay.
spend maximum of 2 more minutes and leave this class. So questions, I can still see some hands raised.
Yeah,
Let's make it
I
quick.
have a question, Simeon. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so is it possible that these figures we are seeing for the financials, that they could just bring out some additional information that would likely want to change some of those balance sheet figures? That's number one. Then number two is that some simulation where we're looking at investment appraiser, working capital management, and the structuring as basically the let's say the second part of our calculation. So for the structuring, what are like the possible calculation we can expect there? And also for working capital, we also going to look at the ratio in that aspect also.
Obviously, for working capital, you must do your ratio, and it's very key for you to even suggest, even though it's already glaring without even calculation. But of course, you have to calculate your ratio, your working capital ratio, the days of receivables and payables and inventory, and your current and quick ratio. Those are key. Those 5 ratios I mentioned now are very key, so that you can know how to then drive your recommendations on working capital. For example, it is those calculations that will tell you the problem with inventory. We can already see that there is problem with inventory, but those are the calculations that will tell you how, because look at how huge inventory is. Money is so tied down in that inventory that these are areas that you need to work on. So receivable as well, the calculation of the receivable days and all of those will tell you how much money is tied down there as well. And then that will drive you to collection strategies that you need to suggest working capital. Payable as well, look at that part and see maybe how you can see it looks like that part is so huge. It is so huge that it looks like they are finding it difficult paying. So you need to come up with strategy. those notes already put those strategies there to prompt you or as to, what to write and all. So, and that's it. The other bit is that if they are asking for restructuring now, restructuring could cut across the long-term capital and the short-term capital. Restructuring would cut across maybe even restructuring the loan, the overdraft, to longer term position so that you are not under pressure to meet this your current liability. This your current liability is so high that your current liability is almost total is almost chasing your total asset value. Current liability. So that's too huge. And the borrowing as well, maybe, the strategies, some of those things that we have documented there
Simeon,
to
please,
say
can
maybe
I
they
can
need
I
to
just weigh in
restructure.
a little bit in this
Yeah.
borrowing? Look at, if you notice something about the borrowing, both current and non-current, they are reducing. Even the overdraft is reducing. If you check the finance cost, it's also reducing. But they are still highly jet. So what are they doing to reduce their debt? I just thought to.
Exactly. So, and it's not like they had a significant cash value. And of course, when you dive deep into the ratio, you would also see the equivalent reduction on the asset side, right? And that is something that you would see inventory is also reducing, and even the PP, although slightly reduced, not as significant
Yeah, no, the PP, I
as,
think there was an impairment. It increased. They say that the stuff has been breaking down and all that. So we can
yeah.
say that.
And then you see a significant increase in payable from last year. So yeah. So it's basically to look at the working capital and the gearing position and look at the calculations that, for example, the working capital bit, very straightforward. Those 5 ratios are very useful for any calculation. The receivable, inventory, and payable to be able to talk about efficiency. The current and acid test to be able to talk about the relationship between current and liability and current liability and current asset, right? The ability to meet short-term obligation. And the overdraft, the borrowing that is sitting in short term, how easy is it for them to negotiate or renegotiate with borrow lenders to put that in long term? And then the other option of exploring, more equity injection. Basically, those are key things that we might be watching out for when it comes to loan or capital restructuring. Yeah, I think we need to wrap it up now.
Hi,
Last
Simeon.
person,
Sorry.
Grace. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so my own question is, I only paid for the simulation class, so I don't have access to the drive. So I want to see when this video is uploaded or the documents you mentioned. So I don't know.
Okay, so for the documents, I'll share that with you. I think I should be able to share it on the group as well.
Okay. What will
Yeah.
video? What this video when it get
Then
uploaded?
this particular video of this simulation class, which is the most important video really, will actually be on it will even be on our YouTube. This simulation class will be
Right.
on YouTube, but the other classes will not be uploaded at all. So the only
No,
option
that's
for the
fine.
other classes is to ensure you attend those classes. That's the only option.
I got. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fine.
The class we'll have on Sunday and then the class we'll have on Wednesday will not be uploaded at all. Okay. Any other question before we go? All right. So in the absence of any other question, thank you for your time, guys. Expect the reports and all the exhibit that we've worked with. And then I will expect you to dive into ensure you utilize the previous sample reports and dive deep to write a report that you are confident to use as a guide for yourself for this exam. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Senior.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.